in the back of your mind are thinking, oh, this shot has to be in the film because it's the best shot I've ever created. It's the best image I've ever created. And if you force it in the film and it has no place to be in there, then you've just ruined the piece because you haven't killed your darlings. You haven't been willing to sacrifice your Isaac and instead of it being where it should be on the cutting room floor, you are saying, I want the world to see how good I am, or sensitive I am, or attuned I am, or educated I am, or cultured I am. And it's about you, and it's not about the work anymore.
Hello. Welcome to our new studio at WAWTAR. I know I get it. We can't read the neon sign, which is the coolest idea ever, but we're working on it because our camera's going to get better at WAWTAR. This is Why Are We Talking About Rabbits? Today, Ben Stamper, filmmaker, and I do mean extraordinaire. I mean, I really shouldn't pump these guys up. They hate when you do this. But I can watch his stuff all day long. Really profoundly thoughtful artist, doing some really important things, films, writing books, and writing a screenplay, and a friend. He's won a number of awards. He's written a number of great films, including The Deep Place, Jonah, Grisha. He's worked on all kinds of stuff in the industry. But if you want someone who's serious about their work, this is the place to go. So our Immersion series continues with Ben Stamper. Ben, I mean, we can tell everybody that I screwed up, but we don't have to. Andrew, you can cut this out.
We don't have to.
We're back.
I mean, it's interesting. I think you can say just enough to pique people's curiosity.
Yeah.
But no more.
Well, we're back, Ben Stamper and I, and we were talking. You see, we did a little studio for WAWTAR. Are we talking about rabbits? You're the first one, maybe the second one. We painted it, and then we bought these neon signs from China. And we realized my current camera doesn't really pick them up. But behind me is a a neon sign. I've got two of them, actually. Neither one is picked up properly. But you know what they're doing? They're phrases from West Africa that you find on the top of buses and lorries when the driver sort of names their rig. So behind me is Mr. Who You. I'm working on getting that clearer, but so Mr. Who You ? Is some sort of translation from Freetown. And it's deeply, profoundly philosophical, but I'm not sure he was trying to do that.
Yeah.
We've got another one coming up, The Voice of Japan, number 4. And we like that one because no one knows at all what that means whatsoever, which is part of the absurdity of watching Western culture clash with West African culture and all the adaptations from the West. It's fascinating. So,
yeah. I look forward to seeing the next one. And what I'm really fascinated by is just the little bit of an object under your light that appears to be a bicycle horn, or not under your light, under your microphone. Yeah. That's perfect.
You got to realize in the end, I think we're saved by something like humility, which has to be something like laughter. It just has
Absolutely. To be. Yeah. The two are so linked together. I think the thing that my greatest terror in life the thing that strikes the deepest, just feelings of horror within me is when I meet somebody without a sense of humor.
Exactly.
It's really, it's the most terrifying thing. I just want to quietly walk out of the room backwards when I encounter somebody with that is void of humor, because I think it is so tied to humility
Yeah.
and to this idea that the world doesn't revolve around us.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think when you lack humor, it's when you are hoodwinked into thinking that it does.
Utterly. And it applies really to all things, even talking about theology or anything. It's in the end, I always want to add, I think, like da 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 da. And I think because in the end, my
Yeah.
cranium's that big. Like it,
Yeah.
I'm not doing very well at thinking. So I'll try to throw that in there and make it funny. But that's what we're trying to do on our pod is heavy things lightly. So here we are. Guys, this is Ben Stamper. So your films are beautiful. I looked at some more.
Oh, good. I'm glad.
I think I want to talk about Jonah a little bit.
Yeah.
But tell us about Immersion as per you going under during the creative process of making a film. What is the immersive process? I mean, how lost do you get?
Yeah. I love that question. I love the idea of immersion as an image to the creative process, to this idea of really anything that is not not straightforward. I think for me, the immersion, when I go to make a film or do a painting or write or sing or whatever, immersion is, I think it starts in a place of self-forgetting.
Hmm.
It's for me, it's, I know if I'm immersed in something, if I've forgotten myself, if I've forgotten, if I become less so that something else becomes greater. And that at that point, then I know that I'm I'm being absorbed into the
Yeah.
thing. And that for me is, if that doesn't happen, then I know that I haven't I haven't dipped below the surface
Right.
of the process, or of, I haven't investigated enough. I haven't dug deep enough, and it's just staying on the surface of things. And so that feels to me just a number one absolute essential, is the self-forgetting. This idea that because our perception, when we look at the world, our perception is abstract. We perceive things abstractly, and we my whole desire as an artist is to observe first and recognize later. And that's really kind of my guiding principle. And I think that hopefully spills out into the rest of my life beyond my art making practice. That, because it's dealing with ideas of assumption, and ideas of how we place ourselves in relation to the rest of the world. But if you don't sort of move beyond, if you stay on the level of seeing what you think and recognize, and only in recognition, then it doesn't, you're not really tapping into the potential of a thought, or of an idea, or of a theme in your work. And I think that so much of what we are facing today is this idea that of like premature art making, where where it's kind of this idea that it's been stripped of process, and it's become just about the either the myth of the art maker or of the product itself. And so I liken it to, we're kind of burning green wood. We're not letting the wood season, you know. And we here in the Northeast, you know, we supplement as much of our heat as possible with our wood stove, you know, burning wood. And yeah, I was stacking wood the other day and just thinking about this this idea, you know, of like, it takes time. It takes time to prepare wood to burn properly. You can burn green wood. It will burn if you are persistent enough, but it's not good. It's not good for the atmosphere. It's not good for the heat index, you know, of how much heat it's producing. It's not good for it. It's more labor. It's just, you know, but you can do it. Yeah, it smells, but you can do it if you want, but it's just not, it's not how it's meant. Really, it's not maximizing the potential of the wood.
So does that imply that we go too fast? We chop and burn, chop and burn.
Chop and burn, chop and burn. It's about getting to the, you know, it's about the instant and getting to the end result as fast as possible. But it's not really efficient. You know, it's in the name of efficiency, but it's not. It's just sort of jumping over the process. And so, you know, these are huge generalities, but I think for me, this is something I'm trying to always be mindful of in my own art making, is just to allow the process to unfold in a way that retains some type of artistic integrity, but also that is helping me go beyond my assumptions about what I'm dealing with, what type of work what type of thing I'm making a film about, what type of person I'm sitting across from when I'm either, you know, in sort of a formal interview, or if it's more of a narrative storytelling. What really, it's just about making sure that I'm availing myself of the process that we all are familiar with, but so often we shortcut. And just making sure, okay, am I allowing myself to be immersed in this moment? Am I being present, fully present?
So let's speak on behalf of, I think we're both blessed in some way to be able to do that. Here's a question. What do you do when the mind, when you hear this sound in your soul or your mind? And sort of time is money. And because it's that voice, I would call it crushes people, but I think most of us think of that voice as good, like moving you forward. Can you stay immersed in a culture that puts a clock on you all the time in the name of efficiency? Can we do it? Is it sustainable?
Definitely. It's 100% sustainable, but it's not easy. And
you can do it.
It's a lifelong venture, right? To live this way, because it is a contradictory, or it's contradicting the sort of the way that it's not just our current culture, it's just human nature. It's
I think that's important.
Humanity, you know, it's not about social media, or it's not about technology. It's about our heart. And that's, to me, so it's a lifelong discipline, but it's a spiritual discipline that I mean, you meet people that are further down this road than you are.
Yeah.
and you recognize,
They
oh,
did
that
it.
person,
Yeah. Yeah.
they know
Yeah.
how to abide, right? They know how
Mhm.
to exist in a way that's not so transactional.
Yeah. Yeah. I think how this could be maybe a little get me in trouble, but so like if you jump into a pond, I don't know where in a dirty, let's just call it a dirty pond. I don't know, in a suburb of Boston. I don't know where. You should expect to get what's in the pond on you. And we're in a culture that's a kind of a pond, and everything in the culture is going to get on us. And one of the things I'm thinking about a lot lately, um, I think one thing that's getting on us is the autistic mind. So I don't want people to hear that as bad or good, but it's a type of 0 and 1 mind. It's a type of 1-0-1-0 mind. And I think what I see a lot, especially as we interview folks to go overseas, we're looking for like affability is a skill we're looking for. I know that sounds weird, but affability and humility allow you to learn language and live in really tough situations with people who can't understand you. The 1s and 0 mind does not. That mathematical mind does not. And I wonder if part of what we call the rise of autism or the rise of, I don't know, um, unsocial or less than social behavior, I don't think it has anything to do with medicine and synapses. And I think we're in a pond that teaches us to be, I don't want to use the word autistic, but kind of. It teaches us to think a certain way. And I think some people identify that as like illness, but I wonder if it's just not our culture. I wonder if not, we're becoming the machine on some level. What do you think of that crazy idea? I can't shake that idea.
Yeah, I like the idea of likening it to the machine, and it seems like a more apt metaphor than, or a more apt way to talk about it than an autistic mind. Just because I've worked a lot with folks on the spectrum, and so often they're what we designate as characteristics of autism weren't present in these people, or if they were present, they manifest in such different ways, just in terms of the social cues or the sort of lack of emotional intelligence that we often associate with an autistic mind. And what I've found in my experience in working with that community is it's not only not that, it's just the opposite of that. I've found
that's nice.
that
Interesting.
the folks I've worked with have such a high emotional intelligence and are so empathic and able to in a sense put themselves in someone else's shoes and to not have it be. And yes, there are issues often with the idea of spontaneity, or the idea of something being like a plan changes, right? Or like something unexpected happens that's outside of the program. I found that often people with autism, they just they express what is going on in all of our minds, but they just happen to express it in a much more forceful way. Where like this idea of the plan shifts, and that's incredibly hard for us to navigate well into adulthood, when we have our plan, when we have our program, and it changes through no fault of our own. It's just, that's life. And how we deal with that, we have so many ways to deal with that, that are some are incredibly destructive. And so yeah, often I've found that, wow, that person is just vocalizing what's going on inside of my heart, but I'm too socialized to let it out. And but the machine, that's something that I feel like is really a, a really good way to talk about it. I think I can't think of that word now without thinking of Paul Kingsnorth.
I know. Shout out to Paul,
Um,
but yeah, for
yeah,
sure.
but it's absolutely it's a riveting. We live in this riveting time where you're just seeing. I feel like people like Paul are just slowly pulling away the tarp and
Yeah.
revealing what has been underneath, fermenting for so many years.
I mean, I was looking back at some of our old podcasts. I realized it's like podcast after podcast after podcast. That's basically what we were doing here and didn't know it. And then I said, who's this Kingsnorth guy? Of course, he's down the road as a pro. He's a pro writer doing his thing. And I realized this is the subculture. You're in it. I mean, you know, Jonathan Pageau and Father Silouan, there's this subculture. And of course, it's not just Orthodox.
Yeah.
I had a crazy table the other night with some evangelicals or just, you know, non-denominational Christians at the restaurant. I was the Tamada. And the language being used, now this is a public place, right? It's 10 people sitting around toasting. The language being used, and you know, if you've noticed, within the Protestant sort of renewal movement, they use the word Orthodox all the time, small o. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Of course,
That was a term that I frequently used before I became Orthodox myself.
You did. So this is new to me.
Yeah.
Now it begs about 30 questions, which we can get into, but we don't really have to because I want to talk about your art some more. But the language at the table with all these folks who, you know, we're doing a Georgian dinner with Georgian Orthodox themes. You know, they're not overt, they're not hitting you in the head, but the way these folks were grappling with these ideas was very old world. Yeah, but they're still, you know, they're like the most light people, new world kind of Christians there are. Something's going on. That's kind of my point. You know what I mean? And
I think it seems like that it seems like Roger can't write his new book fast enough about Re-enchantment.
I agree. It's too late.
It's too late. It seems like the presses are warmed up. Everybody's waiting at the door, wondering when he's going to finish that book, because I think it just codifies what you're talking about. There's something in the air. There's some spiritual thing going on where people are hungry for re-enchantment. They're hungry for this idea of returning to these cisterns and these wells that actually held water, that aren't cracked, that are still sound, and the process of digging and unearthing those cisterns that are still not only sound but necessary for modern life. It's not a matter of nostalgia. It's not a matter of going back to the way things were. It's a matter of, we actually need these things to exist and be fully human in this modern life, because without these ways, without these old ways, we will be completely absorbed into the machine.
Yeah. Wow. I try to talk to people that way, which is, you guys aren't really doing an old world table. You're just doing a table that's always existed in the soul of man. We just forget. And some epochs or eras, we forget more than others. This is one of the really important things, I think, especially for you. Are you guys still meeting, by the way? You and Jonathan Pageau, Father Silouan, do you guys get together still and talk about art?
Yeah, it's sort of a group that Jonathan and Nicholas Kotar began as just a way to gather creative people who are often, many of them are Orthodox, or at least skirting around the edges of orthodoxy, or at least that type of thinking. It's not, certainly there's no requirement by any means, but just the idea of engaging in an artistic practice that acknowledges the importance of the old world. And so it's definitely something that is continuing, and growing. People are being, I feel like the ripples are spreading out, and we're slowly, I think, gathering more people that are interested in these ideas.
Hey, let's take a quick break. Guys, if you want to check out First Things Foundation because you want to travel and live for 2 years, one of our sites, you found the right spot. This is an ad spot for cool people who want to join First Things. We need field workers. 2023, we're looking at Guatemala, likely the Georgia Republic. But most of all, we need intrepid people who have a sense of the affable and who can laugh at themselves. We love those people. Think about 2 years in the field with First Things Foundation. Check us out online at www.first-things.org. Write to Daniel, and Daniel will begin the process of putting you into the most beautiful and difficult 2 years of your life. First Things. Father Silouan, who's dear to me, I knew him in New York City before he was over at what's the art school?
At Hunter.
At Hunter College, yeah. So he's always like, yo, John, you know something? It's not like you bringing something back. It's always been here, man. It's always been here, man. You got to stop saying old world, no world, man. It's a simulacrum in your mind. Like you're not seeing it clearly. And I'm always like, gosh, he's always right, but he's also just the nuttiest monk ever. I love this dude. But I think it's important because I get, I love history and I get down a rabbit hole. Rabbit hole. Because it's fun to do the polemic and beat up the new world, but it's kind of not a real thing on some level.
Yeah.
It's just people living and, remembering or not. I think that's a good way to think of it. But so is this stuff get into your film? Let's talk about Jonah maybe for a second, because I sent this to my daughters. And they're like, wow, who is this guy? And my daughters are black and brown people. My wife is a black woman from New York City. And so they're like, who is this guy? And then they all went, wait, he's white? It was great. Oh, he's a white guy. So you made this cool film about, what it's about, first of all, tell us in your mind. And then how does your race figure into making this story about essentially a conversation about slavery?
Yeah, this Jonah is a short. It could be described as a dance film or kind of a choreographic film. It involves a black man who's using dance as the primary language of the film. His movement and his dance are really telling the story, along with the voiceover that's taking place, that kind of articulates the movement and reinterprets the movement. And this film is directed by my creative partner Andrew Ellis, and we kind of it kind of became a project where Andrew went into making the film with one idea, which is essentially was a dance film within like these cool settings, half in the New York City subway and half in on the this beautiful area in Rockaway, that on the ocean, and contrasting those two locations and creating this really cool dance film. And when he gave me the footage, I I mean, it was a solid piece already, what he had made. And just the more I looked at it and the more I looked through the footage, I just really kind of pulled it all apart. And then it was just about listening to the footage and listening to the
Yeah.
movement and watching the movement and really learning what it was wanting, learning what it was asking for. And then pretty early on, I started scouring the Library of Congress for these old recordings of um, these incredible accounts of relatives of former slaves, and they had this whole bank of recordings, of these field recordings, where uh, this one gentleman just went around and captured these stories. And I really recommend them. Just going to the Library of Congress and searching for these
I've got to do
narratives.
this. I really
Yeah,
want to do this.
they're so riveting, and just in this is such recent history, and
Hmm.
so um, we all know that, but just hearing the recordings drive that home in such a powerful way. So
Yeah, it's
one
a
side,
first person account of their arrival from Africa, essentially, right?
yeah, and it's very, yeah, it's this particular recording. This person is telling it as if it's a first person, but he's actually a relative
That's right.
uh, of a former slave, because the technology wasn't there to record first person accounts. But when I stumbled upon this particular recording, I was struck by the idea that he was relating his story and his family's story to the story of Jonah.
Yeah.
And this idea, the centerpiece of this narrative is this idea that as a baby, he was on the ship um, from Africa, and the rest of his uh, the rest of the slaves wanted to throw him overboard because they saw him as he must be a curse
Yeah.
to their to what has happened and to their future and to their future prospects, and being enslaved and being shipped to this foreign land. And
Yeah.
so they conspired to throw the baby overboard, and he wasn't. He was rescued. They refrained. But it was that idea that this is, if we make a sacrifice on the behalf of all of us, then the God's anger will subside.
Right.
And that was, when I stumbled upon that account, then I knew that I wanted to use that to interpret the movement
Mm.
that Ernest Baker, the dancer,
Yeah, he's fantastic.
did in the film. Yeah, Ernest is a longtime collaborator. We've done so many works with him, and he's a great filmmaker in his own right. And as we've worked with him, he's slowly started to make his own films, and
Nice.
now teaching out in LA, with his wonderful family. So it's someone that Andrew and I have really he's a brother to us, and someone who has just been uh, so artistically grounded,
Yeah.
and really helped us understand, as we often do make films that involve choreography or dance of
Mhm.
some type, and Ernest has really helped us to unpack like how to interpret dance on film. And so as I that's a long way around, from where I was, but just the idea that I was getting at, the idea of just listening to the footage
Right.
and listening to the material that we had, and not just kind of stepping back and letting
Mm.
it germinate a little bit, and then starting to piece together something that it felt like this is what it was supposed to be all along. We just didn't know it. And that's often part of my process.
Yeah,
Is kind of
that's my
like,
question.
yeah, Jackson Pollock, when he would often talk about his painting process as, he would listen to the painting, and he really felt like the painting was something autonomous, something that was, yes, it
Mm,
was coming from him, but he wasn't. We often think of abstract expressionism as this idea of the artist just saying, I'm going to express myself.
right.
And Jackson Pollock, that was like the furthest thing from his mind. And as much as I can speak for somebody else and their artistic process, he really was about leaning in and not forcing his will on a painting,
Right.
and letting the painting speak to him. And it was really, and he learned that way more from Native American painting and
I see.
decoration, and so that's, at least that's what he claims. So that's, I think there's a lot of value in that in terms of filmmaking, and using a script or using a project parameter, and the fences around a project as a launch pad, as a starting point, knowing that at some point you're gonna jump the fence, but it's just knowing when to jump the fence, and how far to go outside of that.
So using terms that I think I understand, which, in my kind of beast mind, I think a lot of people might think this way too. Let's do a continuum: 0, no plan; 100, jot and tittle plan. In other words, 6-year business plan for, like, Walmart. 100, no plan, and 0. How do you go into a project? How much of it do you see far into advance? And here's my question: on that continuum, do you say to yourself, this is what I want to say? Which would call, to me, that's a plan. That's maybe a 10 on the continuum of 100. At least you want to say something. Where are you on the continuum as the project is being, is coming to fruition? Or I shouldn't say that. Before it comes to fruition, as you get ready to do it, how would you characterize that the continuum?
Yeah, I would say I'm not yet good enough at my craft to have no plan. And I think the better you are at something, the more it appears that you don't have a plan, or some kind of,
Interesting.
some kind of, you do need parameters, and you do need a clear boundary and boundary lines. You need to begin each project with some kind of constraint, because otherwise the dough that's rising will just spill out over everything.
Yeah, yeah.
It just won't. There's no container for it. So I always begin with some type of pretty strict parameters. Whether it could be a parameter that's like, this has to be 2 minutes long, or this has to, this can't exceed 15 minutes, or
I
it
see.
could be or it could. Often there are several containers and several parameters that you're working within.
Right.
But it partly depends on if the nature of the film, and if the film is for a client who wants a product, or if the film is something that is what I would consider my own work and my own investigation, and something that is not directly tied to commerce or the market, but something that is just my own artistic exploration. And those two things, even if it's something that's purely from my own interests, it still has lots of parameters, but
Right.
but they're different, and they're different. It's a different set of priorities. And so usually if it's a client, if it's work that's done for a client, there's set parameters that you work within, and there's often a set goal of, this is what we want to communicate. And so in that sense, the client work is more like illustration.
I see.
and you're going into it knowing the end result. Hopefully, client work can be really rewarding and it can be really good as long as the end result supersedes the original intention.
Mm-hmm.
If it only stays within fulfilling the brief or fulfilling the stated goals, then it's a piece of crap.
Yeah,
And
well, that's
it's
right.
not going anywhere, and it's just you're just paying the bills, which there is great benefit to that as well in terms of like a tangible outcome of supporting your family.
And you've come to peace with that. You must have.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And there's like I'm all about like I have the highest respect for wedding videographers and people who fulfill a very specific service within the filmmaking or videography industry. I have tremendous respect for those. They work so hard and they are under such stress to do their job. Stress that I've done 2 weddings in my life and just said I will never do that again. It's too much stress. Life is too short.
I can't see you doing a wedding for some reason. I'm not.
You don't want to see me do that kind of work.
You and the bride don't seem like you'd have a good relationship.
Yeah. I think you're right.
Listen, it's gonna be fine. I really like your dress. I promise it's gonna go well. She's just not happy. I can see that's a hard thing. And the groom's sitting around, not sure what's happening. Oh God, Lord, that would be a tough time.
No, thank you. I would rather have my teeth extracted without anesthesia.
We hired my buddy, who was also the quote limousine driver, which was actually just a 4-door sedan. All of his pictures had a black streak, like the behind me, that black streak right through the middle of the photo. We have no idea why. We're like, I think a demon visited us. My wife was 2.5 hours late. She wore a black dress, ladies and gentlemen. We'll get into it one time on a different conversation. I have friends who still think she was doing a protest wedding, but that's not what happened. She was in search of a dress early on the morning of our wedding. It is a great story for another time. So here's another question. Sorry.
So I'm just going to circle back before you ask your next question. All that is to say that, yes, the client work it's good in its context, but really it has to you have to strive to supersede the assignment.
Yeah.
And then it's worth looking at. And I
what's
think
the hardest part about doing your, let's call it independent, non-client, self-driven piece? What's the most difficult thing?
For my own personal work?
Yeah, it's your film. I don't know. You've already been, forget funding on that anyway. Let's say funding might be the hardest, but other than that, when you start a project, what's the thing that just, it's a bugaboo for you? It's your project.
I think for me, the thing that I'm always coming up against is, I mean, it goes back to that idea of creating something without, well, Terrence Malick calls it the stench of human intention. And that's,
I love that guy.
That's, I fully resonate with that.
Great phrase.
That idea. Yeah. Trying to not force your will on a set of images and sounds that will it's the restraint of it's the refusal to take part in propaganda, and propaganda can take so many forms. It can be spiritual propaganda, it can be cultural, it can be political, whatever, but that stench of human intention, that's what it is. It's a form of propaganda, and artistic propaganda. It's putting the self forward. It's putting any good cinematographer worth their weight will say, I want my work to be invisible. I don't want people to notice my cinematography, because the second they notice it, it's distracting to the story. And
Yeah, wow.
often if you let yourself get in the way, and you in the back of your mind are thinking, oh, this shot has to be in the film because it's the best shot I've ever created. It's the best image I've ever created. And if you force it in the film and it has no place to
Right.
be in there, then you've just ruined the piece, because you haven't killed your darlings. You haven't been willing to sacrifice your Isaac, and 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 instead of it being where it should be, on the cutting room floor,
So
you are saying, I want the world to see how good I am, or sensitive I am, or attuned I am, or educated I am, or cultured I am. And it's about you, and it's not about the work anymore. And
can
so
I tell you?
that's,
Oh no,
yeah, go
can I
ahead.
tell you a story? I have to tell you this story. It happened just Saturday, um, and I wasn't there. So, but I know this man very well. So again, it goes back to our restaurant, and we have a Tamada. He's directing the table. He's deeply dipped in the Georgian tradition. He understands the liturgical parts of this table, and he's also a war veteran. He fought in Iraq and in Afghanistan. Now, the stench of human intention, right? That's because I want to hear what you think about this. Sitting right next to him, he's brought a friend, also a vet. And between these two guys, they've seen a lot. I don't need to get into the stories, but let's just put it's a lot of limbs, a lot of bad stuff. And so there's always a toast at the table, public, private, whatever, whenever we get together at these dinners, to the dead. Often the fifth toast. So why am I telling you this story? Because everyone stands. He offers the toast, the poetic words to the dead. Our Tamada did this. And then at the table were very nice people. There were 20, they're strangers to one another, more or less. And at the other end was a person going through a transition, I believe it was a woman into a man. Fascinating, right? The table can handle all this, but at the toast for the dead, this person, people are toasting to their dead grandmother, and this person toasted to their dead self, the one that had died. I think her name was Cynthia. I don't remember the name of the person. It's not really relevant. But the trans man, I believe, was named the dead woman. Mm-hmm. Now, this is fascinating to me, because you have someone experiencing something like a death. I don't want to say what it is to them, but you feel the temptation right now of my Tamada friend, who I love to death. I love this person, who's seen people be blown to bits, his friends with names. And he said, my ears got red because I don't want to hear that you're alive. You see, and his friend got even more. You could feel their end of the table becoming a little heated. Now, what are they heated about? The stench of human intention was like dragging them into this potential. And this is what a Tamada can never do. Never. Mm-hmm. He can't put his intention on that toast. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Because he'll destroy the table, because the table is the living icon of the altar. Now, it's not the sacramental altar in the sense, it's not the Orthodox altar. Mm-hmm. So everyone is invited in that sense. But he was telling me, and he's from Jersey, he's like, John, I'm telling you, my friend and I wanted to kill this guy. I'm looking at him like, are you kidding me? You're toasting to someone who's alive, okay? And I'm sitting here trying to toast to someone who's actually dead. But he said to me, but I couldn't do it because I knew if I did it. And I think what he's trying to say is the stench of his intention would have gotten the table into some weird polemical place where now his intention is versus her intent. And now you have this thing that is a destruction to the human soul. And I'm so proud of him because he went, so I said, Gagi Marjos, which is to you, it's cheers, to you the victory. Yeah. And the table went on. At the end, there's pictures. I saw pictures, everyone's hugging. What does that mean? I don't know what this means. To me, it's like
He,
a miracle, but I don't know.
what is his name?
The
The
Tamada is
Tomadon?
the term.
No, I mean, what is the
Toastmaster.
Tomadon's name?
His name is Evan. Evan.
Yeah, I mean, I think in this case, Evan, he kept the table in one piece,
Yeah.
and he kept it from being divided.
Yeah.
And that takes, I mean, that's like judo. That's like
Perfect phrase.
form.
It's such
Yeah,
a good phrase.
it really is. It's everything that everyone is shouting in our ears not to do.
I
Just
think
keep
it's your
it.
films too. I
I
think
hope so. I
in
hope so.
Malik and beautiful filmmakers, I love this phrase. You really so happy about it.
Mm.
I'm going to talk to our guys about, I think they're doing
Yeah,
that. They're resisting the temptation of human intention. Yeah.
yeah. Because it requires, in order to do that, it requires that you place yourself last. It
Yes.
requires all of the spiritual disciplines that we're told we should practice to be one with God, but it requires the self control and the
Yeah.
restraint and the not and the love of others more than ourselves. The just this idea, the where self interest goes to die. It's in this realm. And
Wow.
I was at last night. I'm still buzzing from this service last night, the Canon of Saint Andrew,
Mm.
and there was this one phrase in the liturgy that we were singing that I it just it hit me in a way that I never expected, and I wrote it down. It this phrase is, I am the lost coin bearing your royal likeness, O Word. Therefore, light my lamp to find and renew that which was created in your image. And when I sung that, I had to stop and write it down, because
Read it again, Ben. That is just.
I am the lost coin bearing your royal likeness, O Word. Therefore, light my lamp to find and renew that which was created in your image. That's what we're talking about.
Yes.
And it is the work of a peacemaker. It is the work of a bridge builder. This is the work is going back to the phrase that we spoke about earlier, becoming less so that something else can become greater.
Yeah. Yeah.
And in the case of the Tomadon on the table, and the idea of breaking bread together, communing together, toasting together, being present together, that's what that greater thing is.
Maybe that's what art is. Maybe.
To me, art is, and you've heard me say this before, that it's not about, for me, I don't understand art as a means of self-expression. I understand it as collective comprehension, that when we encounter a work of art, then it has to, there has to be a bettering and a greater comprehension of ourselves and of the universe by encountering that art, not just as a private matter, but as a society and as a collective people.
Yeah.
And I would hope, I mean, that's 100%. Like if any of my films can reach that zenith, then I can sleep at night. And that's because that's where it has to, that's the goal.
What are you going to work on next? What do you want to do?
I'm writing a script right now that I'm really taking my time with, but it's been a while since I've written a script. I think since I did Grisha.
Highly recommend that for folks listening. Grisha, GR. We'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it's a adaptation of a Tolstoy short story. But this script that I'm writing now is it's just it's really a story that's been birthed out of several conversations that I've had lately of people who are planning their futures. They're choosing not to have children because of the sake of the climate, and really embracing the idea that refraining from having children is the most efficient and most impactful way that they can save the planet. So I've found myself,
folks that are doing this.
yeah,
in
and
real life.
I found myself in the past year having more and more conversations with friends who are either of that persuasion or are having those conversations with friends just actively,
Sure.
where it's much more in the air and openly talked about as a reasonable and a responsible option. And this is something, it's a thought that's new to me. It's a thought, I'm kind of late coming to I think this has been something that's been talked about, at least in smaller circles, since the 60s.
But let's be honest, we didn't hear this coming up. I mean, it wasn't serious conversation, but now
yeah, I mean, I think in more elite circles, it was something that
right.
You know, was always in a Malthusian kind of
weigh in on it. What do you think about this thought that's bouncing around? I guess this was this film's going to be about.
Yeah, for me, like so many of my films and of my work in general, I embark on a project. I embark on a piece of art to understand what I don't understand. It's really to like, it's a full examination and exploration of a person or an idea or a theme. And so when I started having these conversations, I mean, I can unequivocally say that I don't abide by that philosophy. I think it's really not helpful.
But you want to understand, therefore,
I want to understand it because it's something that has come upon us. It's not something that I agree with, but it's something this is the hour we're in. And so I have to understand it. I have to understand how this mindset is becoming mainstream, and
because it is,
and seen as a responsible and educated response to the changing climate. And so that's really been the germ of this story that I'm writing. And
do you have a protagonist? Are you there yet?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Where's it set? Can you tell us, or not really?
Yeah, it's just set in Middle America, and probably it's set in like a urban setting, like Chicago, something that's very kind of like right down the center,
known to us,
known to us in the not so distant future. And the protagonist is definitely on the side of this, fully being a full believer in this idea of really doing his part to combat climate change. And so the way the story goes is that it starts to impact people that he doesn't anticipate, and people that he cares about deeply. And so it's not a film that I'm writing to protest climate change or in any way, shape, or form, because I think that those things are are real, and those things are things that we have to face. Um, but I'm definitely in the camp of I'm definitely in Camp Kingsnorth of the idea that we're not fighting it with this sort of technocratic response.
Right.
We have to fight it with the full force of humanity, and that's the only way that we can really embrace the moment we're in.
Well, can I put you on, as we finish up here, can I put you on the spot by inviting you to something where I think Paul Kingsnorth is going to go? Well, he's very interested anyway right now, and Jonathan Pajot too. But we're doing a culinary event. This is the full force of humanity, and it's my hope. It's a fundraiser, but it's a culinary event. We bring down our Georgian Ukrainian chef person who I love. I've got a buddy in the Keys in Florida who has a hotel. We're putting it together right now. This is going to be in the fall, something probably like October, November. Could be September. But right now, the event is sort of the philosophy and symbolism of the supra of this dinner that I was telling you about. The full force of humanity. I think hospitality saves the world, because it's the notion of healing in the hospital. And we're going to put it together and rent out these rooms and do a seminar on this concept and bring in a couple speakers. And I would love for you to come down there and spend, probably 2 nights, 3 nights, and look for these dates. Okay. You are formally invited. I know Father Silouan really wants to go.
Yeah.
He's trying.
I'm already there.
Okay, good.
So yeah, you can count me in.
And we'll feast, but we'll also, we'll tie in so much of what I think this subculture is about, which we'll tie in weird oddities about this tradition, but demonstrate how they actually are the participation in reality, and why the table is what it is, and why the ground is where it is. And it's a very cool conversation from this ancient Georgian mist of history. So
sounds like it needs to happen.
Oh yeah. We got a couple people really excited about it, and definitely Paul's talking about it. So I won't leave it at that. There's more to say. Will you come back and we'll keep talking?
Absolutely. Yeah. Anytime. It's always a pleasure.
Tell us. Well, I'll put all these cool things that you've done and that you're doing. We'll put them into the page so that people can find you. And we're still talking, you and I, about, we placed our 2 guys in Mozambique. They're there.
Oh, great.
And so they would love visitors. So you and I should talk about that as a film piece.
Yeah, I would love to get into a day in the life of their experience with First Things.
Yeah, you would just, oh gosh, man. We have to make that happen. You have all the right pacing and, this profound noetic way of approaching things.
I think that it's served me well in the harsher and the more unpredictable environments that I find myself in over the years, and in the film, creating films in environments where you are really the outsider and you're really the the least in the amount in the room, and I really enjoy that that position, because you stand to have the most to learn.
Right. It sounds like you would that's your mojo. That's the goal. Yeah.
That's when I feel like I'm actually making work, is when it's kind of going back to that idea of parameters, when the fences are so you have less to work with, and it's in the least ideal circumstances, and that's when things get interesting and the stories become rich and wild.
I love it. Well, let's talk. We'll keep talking. So Ben Stamper, everybody, and I love this. Is this Jasper? Is your wall Jasper green? Do you know?
Yeah, the behind me, this is
Yeah.
it's actually a raven gray.
Our restaurant is about something like that, at
Oh,
least as it ever been.
do you mean the painting or
The color of the wall.
yeah, the wall, it's probably reading as green, but it's actually a pretty a little it's a little darker than a photographer's gray card.
I love it.
So, yeah.
I want to also apologize to people listening for for how boring that was, that I just pointed that out. What the hell am I doing? Oh, Lord. All right, Ben, I'll see you. God bless, man. And
All right.
greet your people and your family. And let's keep talking. We will, I hope. So
Sounds great. Well, thanks so much, John. More to come.
Love you, man. Ben Stamper, guys. Go check out his stuff, benstamperpictures.com. And you can reach him at benstamperpictures@gmail, because I don't know. I feel like everyone should know Ben. And what great work, and what a thoughtful person. We're working on trying to get him over to Africa to do some film work for us. So if you're that person and you're like, I would like that to happen, call me and help us make it happen. This is John at First Things, www.first-things.org, doing our podcast for and all about and in service to our field workers who are out there on 4 continents, serving local people and helping them build capacity for their local projects. Check us out, support us, become a recurring donor, and then join our community online where we get together once a month to talk about the important things. Check out our Substack. That's right, John Heers, Heavy Things Done Lightly. But if you really want to do something cool, be a part of our work. Become a volunteer. Pray for us if that's what you do. That would be wonderful. But come check out our website. Until then, nakvam dis, au revoir, jusqu'à la prochaine fois. Nawe. What's another one? Come on, there's lots of them. Nyangadef, actually that means hello. That's not goodbye. Anyway, I'm forgetting some. Oh, hasta la vista. See you later.